Hi, welcome to a brand new video of the Target Individual Program, the Target Individual Experience. It is 3:35 a.m. in the morning. Cannot sleep. I'm suffering from severe insomnia. Um, after being hit with direct energy weapons, microwave weapons, and being heavily remotely neural monitored. So I was, just again just looking for some articles to read and some stuff to post on Facebook. And I posted this post right here. It's an article from, let's go here. I don't know why it's saying now that the website web page is not available. Okay, it shouldn't be saying that, but apparently that's what it's saying. Wow. Okay, so anyway, I post this, and immediately after I posted, there was a loud bang outside. Okay, and again, they do this whenever I post something or I talk about something that they don't want me to talk about. Whenever, I'm talking about the truth. Okay, I'm trying to get to that website, and why isn't this thing not working? So let's see if let's do refresh. See what happens here. Okay, well, let me see if I can pull up this article on Google. All right, so apparently, Facebook is not allowing the link that I post, so that people can, when they go to my Facebook page, they click on the link, it doesn't open up. It says the the link is the website is not available for whatever reason. But again, this is them trying to hide the truth. Trying to protect the lies. And so I posted this article. Okay, and I'm going to read something because, again, this is something that particularly they don't talk about uh, the history of when it comes to slavery, not just here in America, but in the Caribbean also. And this is about slave breeding farms. Okay, and this right here it is very serious because you got to think about the uh, not just the psychological trauma, and the physical trauma, but also the you know the trauma of your DNA, all right, particularly if you're a black person. Okay, and we know that trauma uh, can be passed down to generations, right, through DNA, right? So I'm just going to read. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I'm just going to read this, right? And it talks about there. It says the Europeans, who are known for enacting laws to favor their interests, passed another law in 1819, which allowed U.S. ships to not only patrol its own shores, but the coast of Africa in an attempt to stop slave ships at the source. This attempt was not about ending slavery. Okay, listen to this now. All right, this attempt was not about ending slavery. Okay, but in protectionism for American slave owners. Everything was contingent on the fact that there was a self-sustaining population of about 4 million slaves in America at the time. Most of us were told the stories of how slave owners often breed their slaves to produce more workers, but kept in the dark about the breeding farms whose primary function was to produce as many slaves as possible for the sale and distribution throughout the South to meet their needs. So they basically was breeding black people like cattle. Okay, that's what they were doing. You know, so you had farms where you had hundreds of slaves. Okay, and you had a few men at first, slave men who were, they would put a bag over their head. The father would impregnate the daughters. The sons would impregnate the daughters and the mother. Okay, if the father, let's say something happened to the father, then they would take the sons, put a bag over the head, have him impregnate his mother and his sisters. Okay, so Richmond, Virginia, and the Maryland Eastern Shore had two of the largest breeding farms. Okay, remember they were actually breeding human beings like cattle. There is no other form of slavery throughout history in which this was being done. No other forms of slavery. Okay? So I want you to understand how cruel and how wicked the transatlantic slave trade was, and particularly slavery in America and the Caribbean. Okay? So listen to this now. Richmond, a port city, exported between 10,000 to 20,000 slaves a month to further south and west. So where were they getting all these slaves from? Okay, they were also selling babies, which again, something that they won't talk about. Okay, they were selling babies, young boys and girls. Okay, now listen to this. Slavery, not tobacco, was Virginia's primary domestic crop. Understand the terminology that they wrote here. And again, in the context of slavery, black people were crops. They were animals. They were bred like animals and not human beings. They were, there would be hundreds of slaves on one plantation or on a breeding farm. Okay, they specifically had farms that was specifically made and created for breeding black people. Okay, so the slave population of the breeding farm was mostly women and children not matured enough to be sold, and a limited number of men whose job was to impregnate as many slaves as possible. Okay, now in terms of they talk about well, mostly women and children not mature enough to be sold, that's a lie. That's, see, even when we're reading some of these things, we know that's a lie. Okay, because we know that they were selling children as young as 10. Okay, and whatever else they destroyed, because I can guarantee you that they destroyed a lot of historical documents. Okay, but let's talk about the the fact that there were few men that were breeding hundreds and fathered hundreds, even maybe even thousands of children. Okay, think about that implication there. All right. Now, the slaves were often put on hoods or bags over their head to keep them from knowing who they were having forced intercourse with. It could be someone they are familiar with, perhaps niece, aunt, sister, or their own mother. All the breeder wanted is a child that could be sold. See, a child that could be sold. So even when you're reading some of these articles, again, you have to look at how they frame certain things. Okay? In order for the slave not to be depreciated in price, Richmond had 5 railroads so that slaves could be shipped both by rail and boat, which would allow slaves to arrive in better condition and thus fetch a higher price. Slavery was more than human Then man's inhumanity towards man, it was always about economics, right? It's worth my to say part of America was literally built on slavery. Okay, so again, let me okay, so what, again, because there's a lot that has been hidden about slavery, a lot not talked about, and how. So when we talk about how slavery still impact black people today, not just because of white supremacy, okay, but also because